the Strategic Hotbox with Dr. Brandi Love Stankovic. Discussing leadership, business, and how to take control of your life and achieve greatness. It's time to kick some ass.
Hey, it's your girl, Dr. Brandi Stankovic, here on the Strategic Hotbox in year 5. Can you believe it? I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer at CU Solutions Group. And today, we're going to talk about a very important topic, and that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as you may know, I have dedicated my career to inclusion. From way back in the day in international strategies and helping organizations to translate educational modules into Spanish, to working with credit unions on how to accept the matricula consular as a form of education or a form of identification, to working with the World Council in Women in Leadership and the Global Women's Leadership Network, to even young professionals, and where are my young professionals at? All the way up to being a co-founder of CU Pride and LGBTQ+ network, of course, for credit unions, and being a white ally for Black Lives. I believe in helping people and organizations be the best version of themselves and making room for people in this industry. I am not afraid to stand up for what is right. And I'm not afraid to be your ally, even when it's not popular, even when that means I stand out, even when that means I'm uncomfortable, or I end up being the only white girl at the cookout, or the only cishet leading the gay network, or la gringa en la fiesta. Está bien. Because I am tired of discriminatory practices. I'm tired of the blatant or socially acceptable ones. And I'm especially tired of there being a lack of diversity in key leadership positions or equitable resources available to individuals across our industry. It's time. It's time for us to come together. Today on the Strategic Hotbox, we're going to dig deep where we can no longer be complicit. And I've invited a few of my friends. You're going to recognize a few of these rock stars that are going to help me break it down. Individuals that are brilliant, and they're going to provide perspective to enlighten this topic. It's time for us to dissect diversity.
We just need to create an environment where we all feel like we belong. And I've always said that I want younger credit union employees to feel they can have a career in our movement, not just a job.
But then there's also some trendy, DEI is a little trendy right now.
We are going to move to a colored majority sooner than later.
I think it's interesting you all say DEI. In school worlds, we have added J to the end of it for justice, because equity is a huge thing in schools these days.
In my silence, I have been complicit in that system. I have been, in many ways, I haven't taken enough of the stand.
Beginning this conversation, here we are on the Strategic Hotbox, right? And it's been 5 years since before I think podcasts were, as prevalent as they are now. And it's been a long journey of learning and hearing from different people. And what better way for us to be celebrating this 5 years by celebrating something that's important to so many people. And I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to dissect diversity. And yet I knew I couldn't have that conversation without some of the people in this room. And so I set up a conference call with Renee, and I said, look, I'm going to tell you something that right now is confidential. This is like 6 months ago or plus. And said, because I think it's going to be awesome. We're going to remake a video, and we're going to have this conversation, but I can't do it unless you're in. And then here we are. So thank you to you. And then I would imagine each of the emails and or calls that I sent to all of you, there was a message about specifically why I needed you. And I'm very fortunate to say that you all said yes. And so I didn't have to go to second C's. So which was good because that would have been bad. And I do, and Andy knows this, but I put together the group, and then I said, you know what, we can't have this conversation without a white man. We just can't. And so I emailed in and said, and so Zach and I had this moment of like epiphany, saying in the parking lot going, if we were going to invite somebody, it has to be Andy. And so then, I sent the email and immediately he was in as well. So I know that there are so many things happening in all of your lives, and I know that you gave up a lot to be here and be with me. And I'm so appreciative because you were all selected so specifically on the voice and the passion and the sharing of love. And that was one of the things I was sharing with Andy is there is a pool of old, no, I'm not putting you in this pool. There is a pool of white men.
I got my AARP card.
There is a pool of men to choose from. Clearly, you've spoken to it, whatever, but not a pool of men that will come in and not have ego or not be defensive or not. And that was true in all places and all diversities, right? And so we needed to make sure that we couldn't have a brilliant speaker, but then also, doesn't like women. Or couldn't have a brilliant, awesome, somebody that's outspoken, that has a great quotes, but also doesn't get along with gays. Or whatever, you know what I mean? We didn't have any of those moments. Everybody had come in with an open heart, open mind, and being able to share and love and learn and all of that. And so it takes that magic of the people that are in this room. So I admire all of you. And my good friend, Dr. Cindy Chun, although isn't a credit union advocate in the same way that all of us are, you are brilliant at what you do. You are leading the way. And I knew that you would come into the conversation and not be shy. Kind of like the woman next to you, Linda. If I can count on the two of you to be here for that. I want to start our conversation today talking a little bit about our journey in leadership. And first to say thank you very much. I am so very grateful for all of you being here and being this diverse voice and how we can work together to make a difference in the industry and beyond that. And if we can start with our journeys or what brought us today, when you got the phone call or the email or the text message from me, what made you say, yes, I'm in? What do you guys think? Linda, why do you say yes to me?
I always say yes to you. Why would now be any different? Well, I've worked with you and I've worked with the group for years and really excited to see everybody here too. This makes it more exciting, but I knew it would be a great experience. I knew I'd get to provide some information, receive some information, and maybe shake things up. And I knew if you were involved, it was going to be great and controversial. So I'm always involved in that kind of stuff. So I said yes.
Other thoughts? Dasia, why? What do you think?
When called, I answer. And, I think it's good to hear other people's ideas, feel connected with other people. Sometimes it can be a little lonely, depending on what area you're in. So I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say.
Why is diversity important to you?
I think diversity is important because everyone wants to feel included wherever they are. And I think that whether you agree with someone or whether you don't, I think it's always important to at least make them feel like they're welcome in your presence, in your establishment, in your home, wherever it is.
And is that always the case? Do people always feel comfortable, Juan?
Probably not. But, at the end of the day, I remember Linda spoke at an underground collision a couple of years ago that you were moderating and leading. And I remember she brought up some topics around DEI that were really important and I hadn't ever really seen talked about and discussed in the credit union movement. And I remember thinking back, there's so many employees and credit union folks that are being inspired by this because they now feel welcomed. And that's why this conversation is so important, because we know, diverse teams are more efficient, they work better together, and we just need to create an environment where we all feel like we belong. And I've always said that I want younger credit union employees to feel they can have a career in our movement, not just a job. That's right.
And you bring up, I think the inclusion idea is an important one because I never want to not make someone feel included. And so if there's something that I'm doing or a way that I am or inherent value, something that I can shift, I want to. And I know that there are several others that are out there that feel the same. But then there's also some trendy. DEI is a little trendy right now. Renee, any thoughts on that?
Oh, DEI is not a trend. DEI is not a moment. It is a movement. So while others may think it's trending, just the stats and statistics alone will tell you that's not going to happen. We are going to move to a colored majority sooner than later.
I think it's interesting you all say DEI. In school worlds, we have added J to the end of it for justice, because equity is a huge thing in schools these days. So I think it's interesting you don't add J to it in the banking world.
I actually love that.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard that before that. And I think that we absolutely should. That's like, to me, that's the takeaway from today, is that if I talk about it, I think that adding J is there because that shows action too, right? And that's, you know.
Well, and that's what it's about, right? Does everyone have equal access?
Right.
Even if they don't want to partake, but do they have the opportunity to partake if they wanted to? And that's not always the case.
And Andy, what's your journey in this space? Why here, why now?
Had you asked me this question 3 years ago, I would have said, what DEI problem? Because, you know, speaking as a middle-aged white man in America, I don't see that. I haven't had the same experiences with systemic racism, prejudice, you know, lack of opportunities than most other people have. Had you asked me even 2 years ago before I started wearing this pin, I would have said we are not a prejudiced nation. We are not a racist nation. But when my wife got breast cancer in August of 2019, between that and COVID, a lot of my heart got broken. Not just for, you know, just life in general, but then seeing George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, you know, the litany of names in this country who have been victimized by ignorance, by intolerance, by casual racism. Seeing all of that broke me down, and it opened my eyes to the ways in which we marginalized Black, Indigenous people of color in this country at every step of the way, from access to financial services, access to health care. So in many ways, I'm trying to make up for lost time. Because in my silence, I have been complicit in that system. I have been, in many ways, I haven't taken enough of a stand. And my allyship up until a few years ago has been performative at best, to make myself sleep better at night. And this is, for me, a way to re-educate myself so I can hopefully set a good example to my family and to anybody else that I come in contact with. That's why I want to be here today.
Thank you. And I think that you being open to share your thoughts and your vulnerabilities and imperfections even is inspiring, and I know there'll be lots of people that are listening, watching that want to follow in your footsteps in that way. And that's not easy for people to talk about, right? And it's in all cases. We're going to talk about all different types of things today, but is it easy to have this conversation? Sedric, what do you think?
For me, the anticipation of the conversation was not whether it was going to be hard or easy. It was just the openness of wanting to learn from and see and hear the different perspectives. You know, I just hear my parents telling me that your gift will always make room for you. Well, this is an opportunity for my gift, which I believe is people. And this platform is going to allow me to listen, hear, take back, and be the youthful leader, which I feel like I am, to look for our future. Not just where we are now, but we have to develop some young people. And it's going to start there to begin to create that change. So hard, yes, sometimes with the conversation, but easy in my mind as to where I would like to see us go.
And so it's interesting even hearing the two stories, and I know myself the same, that at some point in my career path, inclusion became intentional. But before then, it maybe was just a what I did and didn't realize it. And then at some point I made the choice of, no, now I'm going to force my way around and force this conversation or force this amongst different communities. Is that the same for all of you? Was it always a calling, or at some point did you decide I could make a difference and speak to others?
It's been an interesting road for me to watch this, because about 5-6 years ago, Harvard Business Review did an article called "How Unethical Are You?" and it was about implicit bias research and how our preferences influence the choices that we make. So when I was still this was a lot farther ago than that, so I have the publication date wrong, so maybe about 10-12 years ago now. I was still working for a credit union at the time as their VP of talent development. And so inspired by that article, I did an exercise that I called Roundtable Truths, where I told the group, the workshop that I was in, I said, okay, you're walking into a room with a group of people that you've never met who are all seated around a round table. And I would show pictures on the frame, this round table, with like 8 different headshots of there, different white, black, young, old. And I would have them make 2 snap decisions. One of them was, who do you sit next to, because there's 3 empty chairs around the round table. And the second question was, who's the leader of the group? Mm-hmm. And I would ask the group, why did you choose what you chose? Who did you choose who to sit to? Or why did you choose where you sat? And who did you choose as the leader? You can probably guess who people chose. In rooms that I was in, which were vastly majority white, they chose the white older guy as the leader of the group. And I would ask them, why did you choose that? And the narratives that people came up with were fascinating. Well, he just sits there, he looks like that because of X, Y, and Z. Look at him, he's got a black mock turtleneck on, so that must mean he's a leader because he dresses like Steve Jobs. And people would make all of these narratives about these fictional people that they've never met. And I saw this wide range, this incredible trend. And I've done this exercise over countless times over the last 10, 12 years, that white groups will favor the white face. And that's about it, because when I speak in the credit union movement, I don't think I'm speaking out of school here, that the vast majority of faces in our industry look like mine. And that's where people's preferences would go. And so for many years, that was kind of an academic distinction. Oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't that curious? But then this happened, and everything changed. It's no longer academic for me. This is personal now.
What's really interesting about that, too, is who you would sit next to, because that speaks to who we're comfortable around, right? And so I'd imagine that we would individuals would pick people that look and represent them in some way, right? We do that all in frontline service and et cetera, et cetera. But I was also, what came to mind in that is gender. Like I probably would never sit next to a man because that would be uncomfortable. So I would pick the woman, no matter the. So it's inherent. Where were you going?
Do white people do the nod?
I was just gonna bring that up.
No, they don't.
Sedric, tell about the nod.
Tell about the nod.
The nod is seeing a person that looks like you, and you're welcoming them to the party.
Yeah, when you walk in Smith's
so glad
and
to
you see
see
another,
you.
how you doing?
All right.
You get the nod.
So like I found you at the
Yes.
party.
It's a silent code.
It's a silent.
And I'm
I
talking
got
about
you.
I don't know her. I'm
Uh-uh.
saying I don't know her. I don't know her, but
You walk
glad to
in
see
and
You walk in and how you doing, man? How you doing, sis?
Right away. And sometimes there's no verbal. It's just a nod.
It's just a
And I
nod.
can remember growing up and watching my dad do it all the time. And and at some point I said, Dad, why do you say hi to them? Like, you don't know them. Why did you? I don't know. That's my brother. That's we related somehow. I got him. He got me.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, and it's almost like at this point now, we look for it for, and maybe I'm just speaking for me, some sense of protection.
Oh no, you're speaking for us.
Yes. Should something happen, sis, I got you.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Absolutely.
If I see you in the store and I see something cutting up, I got you.
Yeah.
I think different cultures have that because Hawaiians are the same. I don't have to know them, but I know if I ever got into trouble, I would have 1,000 people behind me. Yeah. But all that we're talking about is actually there's been a ton of research on it for years. Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum from Harvard, she wrote a book, Why Do All the Black Boys Sit Together in the Cafeteria? It's the same phenomenon. We seek to be with people that look like us, that will make us feel comfortable, that will be like-minded even though we don't know them.
And in the exercise that I mentioned, I have 3 debriefing questions. The first one is, what evidence did you use to make your choice about who you think the leader of the group is and where you sit? Second question is that evidence valid? And the third question is, what opportunities did you miss as a result? The second question is the killer one, because if the validity of the evidence means that it's actually true, and it's not. They're making up information, but they're still choosing to stratify a group, categorize the world based on what they see outwardly, and then choose what kind of opportunities they're going to pursue.
But in a choice of a seat, aren't their feelings valid? Right? I mean, the whole point is that if I go into it, sure, I'm judging, but that's part of human nature. But aren't my or the not, isn't that valid? Because it essentially is that human's feelings of comfort, security, protection.
Their subjective experience about where they want to choose to sit, yes, is extremely valid. Their choice as to who they think who the leader is of the room, where the power resides, absolutely invalid, but that is the decision that they will defend the most.
I love the missed opportunity question.
Yeah, that's good too.
My company, my training company, we used to do an exercise in that vein, right? So the exercise was a list of names and then a list of jobs, and you had to connect them. So for instance, Hubert, and then you had to say what race they were. So Hubert Hula Hoosman was a janitor so many times, but Hubert Hula Hoosman was a credit union president. So it was just amazing that, and then so when you do the debrief and you tell them who they are, they're like, what? So I just did this with local government in a diversity training 2 or 3 years ago when we were in person, and they were just like, oh my God, because they didn't know. Like, you make these assumptions. Well, why did you choose that? Why did you think that? And so, you know, like you said, they'll defend to the death that, well, it's because of, and you look at them like, really? Okay.
It's funny you mentioned that. I mean, I just had a recent scenario where our alarms were triggered. I was in the building, but I was by myself, and somebody forgot that I was there. And so police came, and upon me opening the door, I kid you not, the officer said, you know, so it's after hours, are you cleaning?
Wow.
And
wow.
I did not verbally.
That's your organization?
Well, the police officer that came to the building because the alarm was triggered.
But you were at work.
I was in my office.
He's
so I come down. Yeah,
yes.
right. And I'm sure.
Still, I'm sure you were dressed well because you were at work.
Was the police officer white?
He was. Absolutely. So I did not respond verbally. I took out a business card that said Vice President. And he goes, oh. And I felt so much joy in that, but so much hatred behind it because that's the first thing that he saw. The janitor or someone cleaning the building in decent clothes. You know, I'm like, I don't look like, but then what does a janitor look like? Obviously with uniform, maybe whatever, but that's a recent experience. And it is Mississippi, and that is a real thing that I deal with.
That is always why I wear the pearls.
There you go.
I refuse for you not to respect me. I refuse. I have several pearls in this purse, pearls in that suitcase, pearls in my car, because you will get treated differently if you have on a set of pearls.
You think that's a status thing, or
it's not about a status thing? It's about you get it. Oh, you must be different.
But how sad that we have to do that.
Oh, it's all of it's sad.
Yeah.
All of it's sad. But that's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Well, and it plays across all types of diversities as well, right? I mean, I tell young professionals that I work with, being a female in leadership around, when I go work with a new credit union, a new board of directors for strategic planning, I know I'm going to knock their socks off in planning. And then if we do a social event, dinner or something afterwards, that's fine. But I have now made the personal brand choice to never go to a board dinner prior to the session if I don't know the board. And the reason for that is so many times I'm judged in a way that's unfairly to what I'm going to bring in regards to value. And a recent one, I was at a planning session and I was sitting next to the CEO. Turns out we went to the same undergraduate college. wow, great, having a moment of reminiscing. I didn't realize that. When were you there? What was your major, etc. And in that moment, the board chair across the table of like 10 or 11 people yells out, did we hire her because she's cute or because she's worth it? And then everybody laughs. And now I'm having to go in the session tomorrow.
Right.
Underwater, right? So not like having to now get back to ground zero to then make up for that. And so I just chose right then, I'm never letting that personal brand, impact that. And then we'll have a great dinner afterwards, whatever.
Do you find that's like geographical?
I think that gender roles certainly do play, but this was closer to home than we might think.
Because like in my job, if you look across the nation, there are not very many female heads of schools, let alone female heads of color. But the West Coast definitely has the most.
Mm-hmm.
So like we are not necessarily a minority on the West Coast, but definitely if I go to the middle or to the east.
Can I ask a question? I want to unpack that. What would have happened in that moment if you would have said, "Excuse me"? I mean, if you would have, well, and I know, trust me, I know that's in like a million years that probably never would have happened because you might as well just go and rip up the contract right then and there. But how? I don't know. I guess I'm frustrated. I'm aghast. Word of the day, apparently. I'm sad that happened, and I really wish that we would have a culture where, or anybody else in that room would have had the temerity to stand up and say, "Seriously?"
No, what I would have said? Of course you heard me because I'm cute, but I'm good too. I really would have.
Yeah.
It's a hard balance, because if it depending on the role that I'm playing for the organization, I think about those kinds of things. Like, am I here to be sassy and standing up for my injustice, or am I here to get them to their results? Right. And in that moment, I moved on from it and made the decision. I don't know if I'll grow into a place where I feel confident doing those things, or if that I controlled what I could control to control the situation. But I also urge young women to think about those kinds of things and think about how they present themselves to the world and what that, because of those judgment things, that you were sharing.
And focus, right? So this sounds really crazy, but I wear shapers all the time because as a trainer, my back is to the group. I don't want anybody checking out panty lines and being distracted. So there are things that you must do as a woman so that you can stay, as you say, above. And if you don't, your credibility is just out the window. So how you dress is important, especially if you're presenting. So it's always, what's your brand standard? What are you trying to deliver? And you don't want to be the distraction. And you have to know what you're bringing. So you always know what the end result is going to be. You know you're going to deliver. You know it's going to be fabulous. They don't know that. Right. And so once they have it, you have the opportunity, as Andy said, then you have the opportunity to go back and say, that really wasn't something that a board chair should have said. Right. You are representing the group. You need to lead in a better way than that. So there will be the opportunity to have that conversation after it's all over, and you've delivered so phenomenally that they'll hear it. Sometimes people just can't hear it because of who and where they are.
I am delighted to be one of the voices in this year's Strategic Hotbox. This is where real conversations address real challenges. Recently, we have been on a journey together to explore the meaning and the merits of diversity in our workplaces, credit unions, and communities. These conversations have led to important revelations. I hope you have felt engaged. The diversity topic is important for several reasons. First of all, this should be a natural conversation for credit unions. Our principles and core values advocate togetherness, equality, and community. This is a dialogue credit unions should welcome. Philosophy aside, diversity has a bottom line implication for all our organizations. To the untrained eye, financial services look like a fungible commodity. While pricing and branding may differ, our products function pretty much the same. One of the ways credit unions distinguish themselves is through the insistence that all members deserve an equal opportunity to participate in the governance of their cooperative. This is how we build strong members and memberships. Diversity is our strength. This is our secret weapon. In a crowded marketplace, a focus on diversity is another way we separate our values from other institutions. The biggest lesson I have learned on this journey is how much I do not know about diversity. I have learned much through open discussion with colleagues. The discussions our members share speak of painful experiences and missed chances for inclusion. I still have a lot to learn. My lessons will not come from textbooks or academic treatises. I am inspired the most from you. Your testimonies and insights make me a better human being. All colors should join the fight for equality. The rationale for this appeal is we are all interconnected. Therefore, by definition, if any of us suffer, we all bear an injury. Thought a different way, when anyone achieves success, we all share the benefits of their accomplishments. I hope your engagement here with the Strategic Hotbox will cause you to think and ponder how you can make a difference. We all need your engagement, because if you're thinking about my baby, it doesn't matter if you're black or white.
Heyo! It's my favorite time, it's your favorite time. Here are our top 3 kick-ass. 3 things that you can start doing a little differently today. Number 1, add justice to DEI conversations. So diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice, because it infers actions that create a path for all humans. So diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Number 2, commit to the change. Recognize that DEI is not a moment, it's a movement. It's crucial for organizations and society to build awareness, education, and change. Commit to it, and commit to it being in your strategic plan even for the next 3 years. There, I said it, for the next 3 years, have it be a line item in your plan, a goal, an objective, a strategy, up to you, the next 3 years. Number 3, silence equals complicity. Find ways to stand up, speak out, fight the front lines for the voices of the individuals that need to be heard. Join an industry network today, right now. Get out there and do it. Go! That's your top 3 kick-ass.
Coming up on Dissecting Diversity.
I'm the only Hawaiian you will ever meet who is allergic to coconut and does not like pineapple.
Wow.
Yeah. Really? Yeah. I love mango though.
We're not talking code word gay right now.
As a mom, you do get that mom guilt of when I walk in with all these children, people are gonna go, dang, she got a lot of kids.
And I stood in that place where Dr. King had said his speech. And y'all, I'm talking about tears are flowing because I never saw myself standing in that spot. Never.
I like the word cookie. I would say cookie instead of cookie. And trying to change the pronunciation in my head of like, why am I, why are they making fun of it? How can I change? And then I felt like I was betraying myself and my culture.
Until I see you again, get out there and kick some ass.